Hello, I'm Anthony. Today we're going to take a look at loading kits and kit pieces into Groove Agent 5, and we're going to do it from two different perspectives. Firstly, I'll just describe the process. I'll show you how I go about loading kits and instruments into the plugin, but I also want to have a look at it from a historical perspective, because 3 or 4 years ago, whenever it was I made my very large Groove Agent tutorial series, the functionality in the Groove Agent browser, this thing on the right-hand page, was different. It used to look like this. If I put those two side by side, this bottom browser is the same, but the upper browser, this upper window, was quite substantially different, and we're going to have a chat about the difference between these two windows today. But let's not run before we can walk. Let's take Groove Agent 5 back to the point where there's no kit loaded and there's no browser, and this is what you're seeing, a completely empty application. Well, as you saw, this show or hide load panel is the first thing that you should do, and this is actually my standard method of operation. I have the load browser active all the time. There's loads of information in here that's useful, so I highly recommend having this function permanently enabled. So how do we go about loading a kit into Groove Agent? Well, you could right-click on the agent and say load kit, either with or without patterns. In the old version of Groove Agent 5, this would actually launch an independent browser, a separate floating window from which you could load your drum kit in. That's no longer the case. In fact, what does happen is the browser's opened and it basically takes you to this load screen. So this is the only place that you can load kits from. At the top of the window, it's very important to take note of which of these buttons is highlighted. At the moment, Kits is highlighted because that's what we've asked Groove Agent 5 to do. This little clock symbol indicates whether or not a pattern will be loaded along with the kit. These are predefined grooves. So if I have that button disabled and I load a kit, the kit's just been loaded. Here are all of the instruments. But if we have a look over on the pattern tab, there are no grooves. If I re-enable that button, and let's load a different kit this time, in addition to the instrument being there, now we have patterns. The button in the browser is identical to the button in the primary interface. You see both of them toggling on and off simultaneously. I'm going to throw this kit away again by right-clicking on the agent and select Remove Kit. And this time I'm going to perform the operation just from within the browser. I'm going to click this kit image in the top left-hand corner of the browser. What you can see in this lower window is all of the Groove Agent expansions that I have, plus one Remove All Filters option. This icon in the top left-hand corner is effectively show me everything that's installed with Groove Agent. Every other image is one single kit expansion. So if I click all, what you see now is a text list of every single drum kit in my system. Click the icon again, and this time I'll single click one expansion set. Let's choose Beat Agent. So now this text list is much smaller, and it's just the kits that are associated with that one expansion pack. Now, as it happens, the Beat Agent expansion comes bundled with Groove Agent itself. If you have the cut-down version of Groove Agent and Groove Agent SE, you would have access to this one down here, the Beat Agent SE kit. So it's a slightly unusual filter. You start off with the image icon, and then in the lower window you either have a list of graphical icons, or when you click in one of them, it switches back to text mode. So it's just worth kind of browsing around all of your different expansion packs and getting used to the idea that each time you click one of these things, you're going to get given a different set of drum kits, unless you click the all button, in which case it throws all of the filters away, and this is every single kit. Let's have a quick look at how that used to work in the old GA5 world. It wasn't the same. In the old version, you had a drop-down box and you had to select all instrument sets to get this functionality. Let's throw the old one away again, and we'll click the all filter once again. So I want to load an acoustic agent kit. Well, there's no way for me to know that unless I learn which of these expansions are acoustic agent kits and which are beat agent kits. There's a third family as well, which is the percussion kit. That's a single icon, and that's easy enough to remember. But the acoustic agent and the beat agent kits, you've just got to learn this stuff. I happen to know, for instance, that Neuro Mindset is a beat agent kit. When I click on that, all of these kits that I'm looking at loading are going to load up a beat agent instance. Watch the agent symbol. There we are, that's a beat agent kit. Go back into the filter. This time I'll choose an acoustic agent kit. More often than not, they have an image of a drum kit, but not always. The Simon Phillips kits, for instance, are acoustic agent kits, but they don't have drum kit symbols. So let's load an acoustic agent kit this time. And here's our drum kit symbol, and this will be a real world drum kit. One of the biggest improvements that's been made to Groove Agent 5 in recent years is that they appear to have fixed what was quite a serious browser bug. Now, I made a video discussing this issue. I'll put a link to it above for historical purposes, just in case you ever happen to run into it. I don't think you will. I think the problem has actually been fixed, and I would imagine that the reworking of the Groove Agent browser was largely to fix this browser bug, because basically what would happen is you couldn't swap and change between acoustic agent kits and beat agent kits within a single instance of Groove Agent, or commonly it would basically break the browser and all sorts of very nasty things would start to happen. I haven't experienced that issue in a very long time, and as you just saw, I switched from a beat agent to an acoustic agent kit now, and I'm pretty confident that I've not broken anything. Groove Agent works pretty well these days. So I think this reskin has a lot to do with that. They've basically just torn out the old browser and re-implemented it very much in line with the Halion browser. GA5 and Halion now effectively use the same methodology, and I don't think that's an accident. Okay then, we've got our kit loaded, we've got some patterns loaded. I can now overwrite these patterns with different patterns, and this bit I can do by right-clicking on the agent. If I say load pattern group, this pop-up box now appears. I can now dive into one of the other kit expansions. So for instance, Nashville, which is another acoustic agent kit, has different grooves than the one that was loaded with the kit itself. Let's load A Real Good Time. As you can see, all of those patterns just updated. So let's hear what that pattern sounds like. So there we're hearing a pattern from the Nashville kit being played on this, what was it, a studio kit I loaded? Yeah, it was. So you can swap and change kit styles perfectly freely. If you want to go the other way, if you want to retain your style but change your kit, you can do that as well. If we disengage this pattern symbol again, now the pattern will be left completely alone. So we have A Real Good Time. That's the name of this groove or style that's currently being played. Let's dive into our browser, and this time we'll choose a Simon Phillips kit. Let's load this one in. The style's been left alone, but it's been played on a different kit, freely interchangeable in either direction. Now, I understand the desire on the part of expansion kit producers to have their own iconography on these expansion packs, but wouldn't it be nice if all acoustic agent kits had acoustic agent icons in the main browser? It would at least give us some chance of knowing what we were doing. If you're not going to give us a filter to say acoustic agent or beat agent, you know, throw us a bone with the icons. Anyway, rant over. Let's have a look at the top window in this browser, because this has changed quite significantly from the previous version. Here it is again. This is how it used to look. You basically had a 3-tiered hierarchy, and you could change the top levels of these hierarchies between things like category or style. It really didn't work very well at all. It was extremely clunky, regularly got broken. You'd have mismatched attribute filters that just didn't make any sense. The whole thing was a hot mess, and I think they've basically acknowledged that and thrown it away entirely. We have a brand new filtering system which looks like this instead, and it does retain some of the old functionality. So here, for instance, we have style and substyle. Let's see how close we can get to recreating that functionality. So at the moment, I have 2 tabs at the top of this browser, category and properties, but I can add more. Click the little settings cog and enable style as well. Now my new style heading appears. So this is basically the first of those columns that we saw in the old version. This is going to disappear the moment I click it, but we've got, alternative, indie, etc., etc. And there they are. So that's your top level style. Drill into one of these and we go down to our sub style, choose one of those, and we have an empty result set. So this style and sub style filter is being applied to the Simon Phillips drum kit. The Simon Phillips expansion doesn't have any acoustic blues kits. So let's click on the Simon Phillips expansion, and in the lower browser we see the kits that do. And it turns out that there's just a single drum kit that contains the acoustic blues substyle. I'll approach that task from a completely different perspective. Let's get rid of all the filters. I'll reload my entire drum list by clicking all. And this time I'll go back in to the style options, choose my acoustic blues substyle, and once again we're down to this single result. This time it doesn't implicitly tell us where it's coming from, but there is a way to actually see which expansion this kit lives in. In order to do that, you need to go to this little settings cog. This is where we choose the results columns that appear in this lower viewer. If you head into the media section, you'll be able to choose library name. Now this isn't engaged by default. I have it activated. And what it means is that if I scroll across in this results set, library name is right there. Let's pick that up and drag it over to the left a little bit. We'll drop it there. And now in my results viewers, I can see where that kit's come from. Let's find something that has more than one substyle. If you single click in this little filter box, you have the option to make a new choice. Let's dive into alternative indie and we'll choose indie rock. Now we have an expanded result set. There's quite a few items here. If we sort by library name by clicking on the top item, resize a couple of these columns, so you can see most of the results are coming from Metro Heights. You've just learned a thing. The Metro Heights expansion pack is fundamentally all about indie drum rhythms. So that's useful to kind of help reinforce what it is you actually own. And then if we scroll down to the bottom of the list, you can see some of the other kits have got one or two grooves in that style as well. Let's get rid of that filter by clicking on you can either click the individual filter to take away that single filter, or this big X would remove, if you'd made more than one filter, you can get rid of them all in a single click. This default list of attributes that you can see in the upper window is actually an amalgamation of various different types of filters. Drum and perk, for instance, is a category. The one below it is a subcategory. Rock and metal is a style. Over here, we've got some properties. So the different kinds of attributes that have been recently used. I don't know any way to individually curate this list. I would quite like to be able to add things to it specifically of my choosing. I've not been able to find a way to do that. While we're talking about these attribute tags, this is something that I very rarely do, but I'll point it out anyway. If you right click on any of them, you have the option to either exclude or include. So you can, for instance, say, well, I want to include drum and percussion in my search, but I want to exclude processed. So if I choose exclude there, they get colored differently. And this ever changing list of options below meets these criteria. They are these, but they are not these. The default behavior is inclusive. So if we go back to that indie example that I showed you earlier, this blue rectangle indicates that that's the default choice. The difference between default and include is that include can override other filter options. So if you say explicitly include indie rock, even if that list of presets would contain options that wouldn't meet other filter criteria, they'll still be added to the list. Now let's have a look at the properties filter. This is truly horrific. If you click on the properties, you get this little box. Firstly, it's called edit properties, and we're not editing anything, so we're already off to a rocky start. Then we have this empty box of nothingness. What are we supposed to do? Well, the only thing that we can do is click this little down arrow, so let's do that. Then we get, oh my, have you ever seen Friday coding like this? So now we have a list of all of the properties that can be selected, and we can scroll down. Woe betide you if your mouse falls off the scroll bar. because it just stops scrolling. And if you move your mouse back over the scroll bar, you've lost focus. So, you know, get good at using this thing. Let's choose a property that's going to return some results. Let's try heavy. And we'll say OK. Nope, unlucky, none of those. I don't know where this list came from, but so many of them don't have any results. How about banging? Nope, we don't have any banging grooves. I despise this property box so much, I almost refuse to use it on principle. I'm just using my mouse wheel now to scroll down. I'm going to try and find something that's actually, oh, bright, there you go. There's going to be some kits with the bright property, and indeed they do. If you want to verify that, you can scroll across, and here is the properties tag. Again, let's go into the results column, and if we have a look down in the musical submenu, here is the properties tag, and each one of these has the bright attribute. A nice one to add for kits, if we go back into the upper settings cog, is signature. Let's throw all these filters away, because if we filter by signature, this gives us an easy option to find all of the rhythms that meet those particular criteria. I'm very surprised that I only own 2 5/4 rhythms. That's surprising. Let's try and find another one. 6/8, they're slightly more common. See how many of those we've got. There you go, there's a few of them. So you can see spread across different libraries. Here are all of my 6/8 grooves. Didn't mean to stack those 2 filters on top of each other, but you can see this is a cumulative list. Let's throw all of that stuff away. Now let's jump over to the Instruments tab. So this is where we load individual kit pieces onto our pads. This is next to useless as far as acoustic agent kits are concerned, because you can't do this. You get this message basically saying if you try and do this thing, if you try and put this kit piece on one of these, on one of these pads over here, it's not going to work. You can't edit acoustic agent kits. I don't know why Steinberg just don't shut the browser down for acoustic agents, but they don't. So you can still browse them, but it's not going to get you anywhere. What we really need to do is load a beat agent kit so that we can see this functionality working properly. Let's jump over to beat agent, load a random kit, jump over to the Instruments tab again, and this time, as we're clicking down this list, we have the option to audition them using our previewer in the bottom window. But then if we're happy with it, we can double click to add that kit piece to the pad. Now, something that I used to do all the time in the old version of Groove Agent is have instruments set to subcategory, and I would be able to see all of my different kit pieces here, seeing claps and kick and snare. And then by choosing that filter, I would have the results list in the lower window kind of immediately available for the thing that I was trying to do. Well, that functionality does still exist. It's just a little bit trickier to get to because we don't have the option to configure subcategory as a headline tag. What you need to do is to go through your category main menu item. So if we click in that and then go to drums and percussion, here you can see we can choose snare, and then we get all of the items that are tagged with subcategory snare drum. Let's throw that filter away and do it from a slightly different perspective. This time I'll use the search bar. Here's the search bar up at the top. This has moved. It used to be in between. Let's have a look again. It used to be here, and it had a little bit of extra functionality in as well. There were different means by which you could browse with the search viewer. We're not going to talk about that because it's all disappeared. It's now a much more simple search bar. And if I type in snare, it's actually returned all kit pieces that have snare anywhere in their attribute list. When this change first happened, I was very sad because I used this list so commonly that I was totally used to scrolling down my subcategories, choosing the drum type that I was looking for, and then I would have an immediately curated list. It's taken me a while to get used to this new attribute filter, but now that I have got used to it, I can appreciate that all of the functionality is still there. You just have to get to it from a slightly different angle. And that'll do us for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please hit like if you did. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel too. Helps me out with the YouTube stuff. I'll see you next time. Thanks very much.